to the latest edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Please drop where you're at in the chat and let us know that you're with us today. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want more, visit us at nuljobsnetwork.com. Today's Digital Career Success Series, Decoding Family Finance, featuring wealth advisor Vanessa Lindley, will touch on everything you need to know about your family's finances, but are afraid to ask. You know I'm excited about this one. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to all the Urban Leaguers out there. My name is Vanessa Lindley. For the YPs that are on the call, hopefully this is your lunch break. I'm once an Urban Leaguer, always an Urban Leaguer. I was the vice president and president of the Thursday Network. You know, we're the award-winning chapter out of Washington, D.C., but I am a native New Yorker, so I'm back home. And today I'm excited to be here to talk to you about, what you need to talk to your family about finances. Some of you who may know me or may not, I've been in the personal finance industry for over 30 years. I'm currently a wealth advisor at Bernstein Private Wealth, where I focus on financial planning and investment solutions for clients, including tax preparation, estate planning, et cetera. But I'm also a founder. I founded the Lindley Consulting Group over maybe 20 years ago after having worked in the National Urban League and in teaching their Know Your Money course is really my inspiration. I've been on a mission to close the racial and gender wealth divide and the wealth gap. I also have a Master's of Divinity. We'll talk about that separately. But it all matters because I'm very much mission driven. I'm a member of Jack and Jill of America, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm excited to be here to continue on my mission to help us focus on finances and family.
Hold on, you're not going to tell us about this Woman of Wall Street award? You're not going to tell us about that?
Sure. I was awarded a Woman of Wall Street award by Schneps Media. I think it was right before the pandemic, and it was for my work in closing the racial and gender wealth gap, being able to help communities around the country increase their financial acumen, which is why I'm here today. So I'm excited about that.
Man, we're excited to have you here. The reason I mentioned that, we always have a DEI kind of slant on the Digital Career Success Series. And I know that Wall Street can be kind of homogeneous in a sense. And you receiving that award tells me a lot about the work that you're doing. And we're so proud and happy for your accomplishments, but also to have you here as an Urban Leaguer. I bumped into you a couple years ago in DC, and you always bring that energy. So I was extremely excited to provide the opportunity and for you to accept the opportunity to come on the show today.
I'm so glad we did meet again. And when you reached out to me, I was like, of course. And just a little behind the scenes, we have a past YP president group chat. I said, they still got me working all these years later. But it's an honor and a pleasure. It is.
Look, you always talk about you're working for good. We got you working for good today on the Digital Career.
That's right. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve, for sure.
Well, speaking of serving, I know when we had some conversations earlier, pre-show conversations with Corey O'Donnell, and you spoke about there being 4 pillars to this discussion. So we're going to jump into it, man. We're going to talk about these 4 pillars and get everybody set up for a robust conversation around finances. Listen, I know you guys are going to have questions. Please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the Q&A for Vanessa, because we will have a Q&A section probably around 12:40. So drop your questions in the Q&A, communicate in the chat, but Vanessa and I are going to chop it up a little here. Let's talk about the 4 pillars.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just want to make a caveat. While I am a wealth advisor at Bernstein Private Wealth, any views or opinions that I share here today are my personal ones. I will have a slant. We talk about DEI, but I purposely came to Bernstein because, as Kenneth was alluding to, there are not a lot of people that look like me in this space. And I'm working in a high net worth, ultra high net worth space. And as I always do, I learn and I give and I share. So I'm excited to be here today to share what I've been learning, what multi-generational families have been doing with their wealth. And so what we do here at Bernstein is we take them through this cycle. If you see this wheel on the screen, there are really four pillars of really family finances. One being identity, meaning how does your family identify with money? And it's going to go through your family stories, money beliefs, purpose, vision, and we'll break these down one by one. And then we talk about knowledge and experience. We tend to start in a lot of spaces with financial literacy, but that is not the only thing to transfer wealth. So we go to what your family culture is like. Who's going to be in charge of this money? What are the rules around engagement around money? How are we going to set up the passing on the money? Who's going to be like the family council? And then again, that bleeds into the governance. Who's gonna, what education is needed for whom in the family and who will handle what. And we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And ultimately, we're talking about wealth. But wealth is a collection really of money, which is a tool to help your family reach their goals and create the legacy that we so much want. So these four pillars we'll go through today really encompasses how families should be talking about money and their finances.
You often find that there are four pillars here on how people should be talking about it, but even just to start the conversation, any advice on how we get the conversation started?
Well, this is funny. I'm going to age myself, but it may have been 20 years ago when I taught the first Know Your Money session through the National Urban League. And that program was designed for the YPs, the young professionals around the country, it was a 3-week course. And the first course was really about this identity space. How do we talk about money with each other? And one of the homework assignments was to interview the elders in your family. It could be the parents, it could be your grandparents, your aunts, uncles, whoever is in your family that's one generation ahead of you, and start the conversation. Some of us now, I'm old, I have 3 children, so I'm having a conversation both ways. So,
Right.
talking to the ones before me and also teaching my children. And we always start with the core, what's important to you. But when we want to start to talk about money, some families have this taboo that we don't talk about money. So we have to just ask some bold questions. What was your first money memory? As you're talking to your parents or grandparents, a generation before you, what were you talked about money? What did your parents say to you about money? And I'll ask that in the chat. Does anybody have an early money memory or a conversation that you've had with an elder in your family about money? Let's put that in the chat so we can talk about that. So the first question for me, I'll go back. I always like to go back to the first generation to see where their money values and beliefs came from, and then we can move it forward.
So Vanessa, these are the identity stories, right? This is
Right.
where you're starting with identity. Am I correct?
Yes. Identity
So,
is where we always start, because whether you know it or not, we have these unconscious beliefs about money. And it is passed down to us from, again, our family and community that we're raised in and our surroundings. And sometimes they go so deep there, we call them unconscious. And these are not subconscious. Remember, subconscious is just below the conscious level, so it's still accessible. Unconscious is that you're behaving with money in ways you don't even realize. And it comes from what our environment is. So we really need to talk about it, have the
okay.
conversations.
Okay, so we're here. We can go to the identity slide. So we're talking family stories, and then we're talking money beliefs. So let just kind of walk us through how these conversations take place.
Yeah, I mean, I think people put in the chat, like, someone put in, don't waste money because you won't have money when you need it. That's something that was said in a family. And how do you think that plays out? Don't waste money. Some people, if they had that message, they would save money all the time. Or on the negative way, they could prevent themselves from really living in abundance and getting money and enjoying money in the way that they should. So family stories are very important in the history. In my family, excuse me, um, we went from being sharecroppers to shareholders, but
Hmm.
I didn't hear all the stories until I was an adult. So my grandparents on my father's side, I mean, literally were sharecroppers, and I traced my, line all the way to a plantation in Wilmington, North Carolina. My grandparents were one of the first Black families to buy a building in Brooklyn, because we didn't have the knowledge, and there was a generation gap. That building was sold with my grandfather died when I was basically in utero, when my mother was pregnant. So my grandmother, with no education, had to manage this building, collect rents. And I saw that as a teenager, but still didn't know what I could do. My aunts and uncles, when she got sick and died, my uncle who inherited just sold it. Now I go to East New York, Brooklyn, that's millions of dollars. But
Sure.
these family stories, to know what they overcame to get that property matters. But then we go into, understanding those stories and what that legacy means for me. But for me, I picked up the mantle. So I'm an investor in real estate because I saw that as a child. But then I was able through education to learn more about the stock market and investing in other, types of investment vehicles. But now, as my generation, I want to get into, what our beliefs were about money. Again, that generation came from you work hard, you save, you get it. Now I know you do need to work hard, you save, but I also know how to leverage now. So understanding what that is. So for my family, we've created a purpose and vision. We're going to have money that's working for us while we're working for money at the same time. So having the conversations with asking again, the back generation, you know, what did your parent, how did your parents talk about money? What does money represent for you? As you can put that in the chat right now, what does money represent for you? And do some self-assessment on what did I learn in the past and how does it affect me now? Am I working hard and not really enjoying my money? Am I working hard and not making money?
Mm.
Am I, making a lot of money and spending it all? I remember the Know Your Money session. We had like titles like the big baller shot caller. You're the first person in your family to make all this money. But now you have this identity that's being placed on you to show that you have this money. So you drive the nice car, you have the nice house, but you don't have any assets beyond that. You have no money in the bank. You can't really build a future generation. So these are some of, when we talk about identity, these are some of the identities that we gain from our community that we have to start to see what is true and real for me in this moment. And then how do I plan for, again, the vision? What's my real purpose and vision, which is the third part.
So you know what? I want to talk about money beliefs. We often find that people say maybe they don't make enough to invest. How do you feel about that as a belief, as a money belief?
There's so many. I can go a whole session. We could do on money messages and beliefs, believing that money is the root of all evil, or, I don't have enough. And sometimes people really do have enough, but they've never really quantified what is enough. And that's the first part, really figuring out what's important to you and how much is enough. Because we can always be on this wheel of trying to get more and more and more, but everyone has an opportunity to invest. I believe first you have to be a saver before you can actually invest because you have to have that nest egg, you have to have that protection in in your liquid cash in a bank of some sort of tool, but also can invest beyond that. And most of us maybe first generation wealth creators is what I could, maybe I'm second generation, but we didn't get it passed down, inherited. I didn't inherit it from my grandmother, but being a lot of first generation wealth creators, our home is usually our first asset. If you buy a home, if you're blessed enough to buy a home, that is an investment. I tell people when I was in Maryland as a State Farm agent, I even wrote a book. I have a book on Amazon. I didn't have that in my bio, so I have a book, Achieve Financial Victory: 7 Ways to Win with Your Money. I know, don't anyway, but I
Now
wrote about it in the book.
we're gonna drop that in the chat. So say that again, please. The title.
Achieve financial victory: 7 ways to win with your money.
Great.
I just want to give one example about people not feel like they have enough to invest, and then we'll move on to the next topic. But my first experience, I was a State Farm agent. I was doing pretty well. Single, no kids. I had a 3-bedroom townhouse in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I realized that, I drove a Honda. I was never really into the cars like that, but I decided I wanted a Mercedes, that age, whatever. But what I did was I rented out one of the bedrooms in my house. What do I need 3 bedrooms for? So I rented out one bedroom, and that bedroom paid for my Mercedes. Like,
There you
done
go.
deal. I don't have to, that's paying my car note. So investing comes in many ways. And fast forward, when I'm married, I have, 3 children. We have a house in Queens, and I remember you all in the nonprofit. If anybody's in a nonprofit industry, I was doing a lot of nonprofit consulting, and then about to have this election, some of the legislation changes, some of the funding was diminished in the nonprofit world, so some of my income took a hit. What did Vanessa do? Took her basement, rented out one room in her basement, Airbnb, $1,000 a month.
Nice.
So investing starts in many ways. So I just want to throw some tidbits out of this. So there's a way to invest even when you don't have a lot of money.
You know what? So I know we're ahead on the slides, but purpose and vision
Yeah, go back.
was on the prior slide.
Yeah.
Are there any resources, tools? I think people kind of have a challenge with grasping the vision, right? The
Right.
vision for financial success. Is there any advice that you can share that may assist people in kind of getting their head right around it?
Well, I take my clients through we have four wonderful tools at Bernstein, which I was happy because I use them in my private practice. We have priority cards, which is an activity that we take people through to really identify their priorities in life as it pertains to their overall life, and then money will help you achieve that. We have a discover your values activity where people get to identify their values and rank them so that they can, activate their life to reach those, to match those values, but then use their money to also, again, match that as well. We have another activity called money messages, where you can, where we take you through an activity to identify those money messages, like I was just talking about. And then we have another one around growing your giving, if you're doing giving. But when you want to think about, once you identify your priorities, values, etc., and you set your goals, then we have to start to put those things in action. And so we do also have an opportunity to help people create vision statements, family vision statements, core values. So I would say, see me
I,
as usual, and I
you know
can
what?
help you walk through. And in my book, I do have my book is designed as a workbook. So you can go through some of these in the actual workbook as well. I know I didn't tell you that, Kenneth. I know I threw that at you, but
Look, we got to it though, nonetheless. So it's out here now, so we're
yes,
good.
yes.
But look. So you provided the foundation. Now it's about knowledge and experience, right? And kind of working through that. So let's talk a little bit about kind of where knowledge and experience comes into play.
So I left these in context of the family. So you're going to see the word family a lot in here, whether you're single, married, we have all different ways families, cohabitating, partnerships, siblings, however your family is identified for you, there is a culture. And you also get to identify, and excuse me, if we go back to that wheel, some of these overlap, and you'll see as I talk through them. But culture also matters, how you identify what's important to you. Sometimes we aspire for cultures that are not ours, and I think we need to be honest and true to our own culture. There's a lot of value, and that goes back to the family history. So if people want to identify, a family culture based on XYZ, we didn't start like Kamala Harris would say, the coconut tree. We didn't fall the coconut tree. So, when I think about my grandparents not having an education, but my grandmother was able to run a building, and she would go clean people's houses, still run a whole family without any education. So culture, we are owners. That is our culture. We are
Okay.
investors. That is our culture. So the next part of that slide is the education though. How do we get it? I was again um first generation college student, and I knew from young I wanted to be in business. I always had a passion for finance and money, but I have to get education. So besides an undergraduate degree, I have a million licenses and certifications, all insurance, Series 6, you name it, Series 7, education. But we have to make sure we are also helping our family be educated. There's a lot of, conversation around whether higher education is worth it or not. People are going back to trades. It doesn't matter. Education means, what do you need to learn to do better in whatever it is that you do? So it doesn't have to be a university degree, but it should be some sort of education that's going to advance you. So financial education, I absolutely ownership, how to own, whether it be a business, real estate, how to balance your checkbook, ABC, savings account. I said checkbook, we don't use checks. How to balance your savings account, how to invest in the stock market, how to invest in other businesses, creating passive income, and then also trust in the states. How do we now take all this, once we accumulate these assets, how do we now pass that on to the next generation and honoring our family culture? So I have a very close friend who's their spouse's parents set up their family trust. And I learned about this like 20 years ago. And their culture was education. This money could only pay for higher education. So if a kid did not go to a university, they could not access that money, but it would just go to the next kid or the next generation. So again, you get to identify what that is, but not to only glorify that. I have a nephew who is a whiz, and he made a determination that he was not going to go to university, that he wanted to own a business. Now, through my strategy with my mom, she died young, But of course, I made sure she had every life insurance and all of the benefits. So we all got inheritance. His inheritance grew to six figures, and he has not really touched it. He's working. He graduated high school early. He already got his CDL at 18. He's driving trucks. He intends to buy a fleet of trucks. But what does he need? He just needs the education to run that business, to run that truck, and how to handle that money. He does not need to go to a four-year university to be successful owning a fleet of trucks. So that's what I mean by education and knowledge and experience.
Yeah, I think, success looks different to everyone, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like he's figured out his lane and his niche, and
Yes.
he's moving forward in that way. So let's talk a little bit about family education around finances. I know our audience typically they love resources, they love things that kind of push them in the direction of just having more information. Anything that you kind of have leaned on in the past to just educate your family? You mentioned you have three daughters. I know you're a wealth of knowledge, but how else do they find family education about finance?
That is funny, but I am the wealth of no, I feel really bad about it, but maybe not. I do teach them a lot personally. I'm gonna think about some other resources besides my book. But
Keep
even with
pushing
my
the book.
kids, when my kids were younger, and they don't want to go back now, which I feel bad about. But they're not that old. When they were like 7, 8, and 9, they're stair steppers too. So, um, my daughter, who's the youngest one, would go around making these concoctions all around the house. She would put like lotion and Vaseline and dish detergent. So long story short, I created a skincare line for them. And so with her desire to create these smells and senses, I helped them understand what it would take to run a business. So I would get a speaking engagement, and then I would get them a booth, and the middle one is a salesperson, and she would
Okay.
literally ask me, if I sell this, how much money am I making at like 9 years old? The
Love it.
oldest one is the operations. She's in the background making sure the quantity, we have enough, supplies, etc. But they learned how to run a business from a very young age. So the family education happened through me. Besides me, there are, which I'm going to have to give you later, there are education resources for youth. There is one big one that I'm drawing a blank, and I know Kenneth told me I better come up with next, but I can't. But there's a program. The woman is based out of Brooklyn, New York. And it's an education for youth. Someone please in the chat if you know it. I know people know it's very popular, but they take them through summer programs for financial literacy, and they're able to not just learning how to run a business, because everyone's not going to do that, but understanding how to save, invest at a young age. And again, I've led these for young people myself. I am a financial educator, but even for the young professionals, a lot of my consulting work, I work with nonprofits around the country, and they provide financial education for anybody in the community. So a lot of them are through the nonprofit housing agencies. And so people think it's only for low to moderate income, but it is for anyone. And they can help you find resources for starting a business. They can help you find resources for buying a home, buying investment property. So if you look up HUD approved housing agencies, you can find financial education centers, or financial capability is another buzzword. Financial capability, they do education, and I've trained a lot of those agencies around the country. And again, it's not just for low income; it is for moderate income as well. So you don't have to qualify necessarily to take advantage of it, but it can help you on your journey to building wealth, whether it be again home ownership, starting a business, or just saving and investing.
Well, excellent. So we're going to go to governance. It's Vanessa Lindley on the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. Please drop your questions in the Q&A. We will do a Q&A segment with Vanessa to allow her to answer some of the questions that you have directly. All right, we're talking about leadership development here in this part, and it's an important piece of the equation.
So yeah, again, now that I've come into the high net worth and ultra high net worth space, I've been fortunate to really see how families have created what we call family offices. I had never even knew what this was till a couple years ago, because this is like uber wealthy. I don't think you have to be uber wealthy to create this system, but because it's expensive to create a family office. Usually you're in like hundreds of millions to have, or at least 100 million to have a family office. But the governance part can happen for anyone. So what a family governance is you first create a family tree. why is that important? I said this over and over again. I use my story as an example, but regardless if your family was disjointed, disconnected, well, whether it was, stable, you want to know where you came from and you want to help your children understand where they're going. The family history is important. Again, identifying the values is important, but that mission and vision statement for your family is going to be important. And then hosting family meetings, family assemblies, so to talk about money. And again, some of this is going to take a lot of culture change, because if your family is a family that didn't talk about money at all, and now you're trying to have a whole family meeting about money with grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, whoever, or it could just be you and your future generation, but you want to have those meetings. Then it's the family council. So if you're talking about generation wealth, I joke with my kids now, they are 12, 13, and 15. And I feel bad about it and I don't. But I already say, oh no, you're not in charge of the money. You're in charge of the money. There's one point, my middle child, I knew she was going to be the one. She was a saver. Now she's 13. She want to get all the labels. She's spending every dime. Nope, you're not in charge. My oldest one, who can't keep up with her money, but now she's a saver. So I'm like, you're in charge. But no matter what, you need to have leadership development. And leadership development could be almost like board development. So if
Mm.
anybody here ever served on boards, and again, us YPs, we've served on boards from young. We need to train up those leaders. And so now I'm going to get the resource. Board Serve is a resource that trains board development. We help it if you're our client. Again, we serve high net worth. We do some of this leadership development here, but the Board Serve, if you look up Board Serve, I can't remember who hosted. It's a nonprofit. They do, I think you pay like $100, or maybe it might be a couple $100 now to learn how to serve on a board. Yeah, look up Board Serve. Thank you. You can also find out how to do those leadership development, because someone has to be in charge. I have a potential client now that he inherited $100 million family office, and this is a Black person
Wow.
out of Georgia, $100 million family office that he inherited. And so in the family office, there are different, well, if you go with the family tree, different branches in the family office. So his grandfather left it, their siblings, and then he's the next generation, but he was the oldest of that third level generation.
Sure.
Now he's he's the stewardship over the wealth, in essence. So he's an economist by study. He like has a degree in economy, so he is good for it. But he is now wanting to put some of the branches with me, because he now has a whole different fund. He's investing in economies like stadiums and et cetera. So, but it is important that the person who's in charge of the money knows how to run the money, but also how to manage people, right? And so the person who may be good with the money may not be good with leading the team, may not be the person to have to lead the family meetings. Because sometimes he said he becomes the villain if, he has to give, money to this person or no money to that person. But again, we're going to talk about the documents. It's important to have family documents that guide the decisions so that this drama doesn't happen. So on the lowest level, a will can do that if you're, leaving money to say how the money would happen. A trust would be a second level. But again, making sure whoever's in charge has the skills to be able to lead the group, lead the family, and handle the finances.
So you said something earlier that I think is really important when we talk about decoding family finance, because sometimes the stewardship in a family, that may not be the person that has wealth stewardship. They may not be
Yes.
the right person
Yep.
for that.
Yep.
They can lead the family, but
Yep.
they may not be the financial person.
Nope.
So is that what happens in these meetings? Kind of decisions are made around who is the right person?
Absolutely. We suggest people having a family council. So the council is a group of people. So it may be just the auntie's the one that everybody goes to auntie. She cooks good food. She got enough space. That's where we're going to meet. She's on the council because she's the convener. She brings people together. She's going to get the food together. Vanessa's going to be the one. This is what we're doing with our money. Kenneth is going to be the one to be like, listen, y'all need to be looking at these careers for the future, because this is what's happening in our society and our economy. This is what we need to be doing. So that's what I mean. So every person in the family and on this council has a role. But you see how important each role is? every role is important, but each person should have the skill set to be able to lead that role. So it is, someone else may just be the scheduling. Who got the anal person in the family who like everybody be on time? We meet the third Wednesday. That may not be any one of us three that I mentioned, but they're gonna make sure our meetings are on time. They may be the note taker, the secretary. Everybody, it's a board. It's a family board, and so making sure you have the right people on the team to lead the family, in this way is very, very important.
Vanessa, I'm glad you're mentioning this, and I'm glad that these sessions are recorded and they're available on the Urban League Jobs Network YouTube channel because I need to do this with my family. We can't agree on where to go to dinner, let alone some financial matters. So I'm going to play this for them prior to us getting together. So maybe they'll come in with an open mind about how we're making decisions on who's in charge.
And I do think, whenever you come to that, you do need some sort of a facilitator, and it usually is someone outside of the family to facilitate that value session, to help you create this, family governance. And it's a family mission statement, really, is what you're creating. So a lot of us who work in professional settings, we've done this. We've either participated, we ran it, we've been a part of board development, creating mission statements, even if it's for our company, a team, our unit. We need to do this for our families, and you might need an outside facilitator to really help that, because who's in charge? No, you're not in charge. I'm the oldest. No, I'm the oldest nephew. I'm the oldest cousin. Whatever. You might need a facilitator to just start to hone on, what are the values, and then how do we marry them and put them together to create this future vision for our family.
The future vision is always it's wealth, right? And that's what we're here to talk about. And it's your final pillar. So let's jump into that.
Woo! This is a big one. I mean, all of these are important, but first is the goal. What is your goal? Did anybody here have a goal for themselves? A wealth goal? Put it in the chat. I want to hear what your wealth goal is. If you're able to put it in our chat, if you're on here, I want to hear what your wealth goal is. Zero debt, Cedric. What does zero debt do for you? What does zero debt do for you? What is your wealth goal? What does zero debt do for you? To buy a home for cash. Why? Frees up other cash to invest in what? For what? You want to invest 100,000 for what? And what? So when I go through a goal setting strategy, again, we start with the values, and that is first. Then it's priorities. Then we get to the goals, because the values and your dreams will help then identify the goals, because the goals should be quantifiable. So you are throwing out numbers here, but we start with the why, the big why for the individuals in the family and for the family as a whole. And then we break down the goals. So, but not be in debt, that creates freedom for you, right? That's a value. To not have to be stress-free. That's how I want to live. Someone said to have the freedom to retire their mom. Why is that important to you? You might want to retire your mom early because your mom has worked so hard that you want to be able to give her the opportunity to rest and enjoy life in a different kind of way that she has not. Someone wants to retire with real estate power. But I hear you want to listen to the values. So financial independence is what many people want. But what does that do for you? What does that do for your life, having financial independence? If you had it, what would you do with it? And I want you to think about that and put that in the chat. So it's, peace of mind and security. And then you'll be able to do some of the things that you want. So we throw, I want to be a millionaire. I want to earn six figures. I want to earn double six figures. But what is that going to do for you? So I also like to tell people that, and Kenneth said it earlier, that success is personal. Finance is personal. It's up to you. I know people who live in Pennsylvania. They own their home outright. They have no debt. They don't earn a lot of income. Love their life. It's simple, no stress. They have their family over. They have dinners. They are achieving their dreams. Other people, like the crazy me, gotta be in New York City every day on the grind, achieving a level of success, breaking barriers. No one gets to define what that is. So I hope people really look at the big picture, what's important, the values, the vision, why, and why. For me, it's recouping what my grandparents lost, but it's also overcoming on my mother's side what we didn't have opportunity to get. So I'm here to break those barriers and create that generational wealth moving forward. Now that then turns into goals. What does that mean? What is the goal? So again, I've owned several properties, so I've reached those goals, but I want to leave a legacy for my children so they're not mired in debt when they start their life. So these are some of the goals. And then we in Bernstein, we forecast out people's wealth all the way to 99 years old. Because once you start making more money, you have access to a lot more resources and you tend to live longer. So we do a very conservative analysis so people can live to 99 years old. So we do something, we have a wealth forecasting analysis. It goes through 10,000 simulations. You put in your income, your assets, and we see how much would these assets afford you to live each year. So some people say, I still want to have an income of $300,000 a year, $100,000 a year, whatever it may be. I want to buy a condo, in 5 years, for $1 million. And then I want to be able to leave, X amount of dollars for my children and grandchildren. And I want to donate money to this society, my HBCU, whatever it may be. We quantify those goals. We help people quantify those goals out. And then we run it through a simulation so they can see what those goals look like on paper. And then they can decide how they're going to reach those goals. So if I say, oh my goodness, it's going to take that for me to reach that goal, that's too much. So I can reduce my goal. I'll be like, oh, that's all. I think I want more. I can raise my goal. But first it starts with the why, then it goes with the how. And to me, goals kind of bring those two together.
The goals are really important. And I know you mentioned kind of legacy building, uh, you know, uh, kind of really aligned with the goals. Like, does that have to be the goal?
Well, that's one of I mean, you could have multiple goals, right?
Sure.
I mean, that the vision and mission, I know people have gone through these activities, they're always like blurring the line, the vision, the mission, the goal, the strategy. Yes. So, your vision and mission can be that to create a legacy, that'd be like your mission statement. But the goal in order to do that would be, to me, more quantifiable. So
Sure.
in that, I would have, X number of dollars in a trust for each of my daughters. Those are the goals because I want to be able to reach the goal. So it has to be quantifiable. And so, I always say a financial goal without a dollar and a date is a dream. So the goal to me has to be quantifiable. It has to be like, somebody said, I want to buy my house all cash by 2030. In 5 years, I want to have $100,000 to buy this house cash free. That's the goal to me. The dream, the vision is the outside, and then how, the goal, because then we can start to quantify it and we can start creating strategies to reach that goal. And I was, in my book, before this, I did a lot of financial coaching. And so in that, I was able to say, okay, if your goal is to have $100,000 cash in 5 years, that's what, $20,000 a year. How are you going to make that happen? What type of bank account are you going to open? What type of investments are you going to put your money into? And then again, in my book, I have tons of resources of where you can put your money in. There's I recommend, you have what we call in the psychology of money, you would put your money in goal designated accounts. So if you have multiple goals, which we all have, you have a retirement. So you always have a retirement account. People already know you have a 401k. But if your next goal is to buy this property, have $100,000 to buy this property, you should have a separate account just for that. And it's the dream property account, whatever it is. Then you have a savings account. You may have a vacation account. I don't know, I'm aging myself, but back in the day, people had vacation clubs, Christmas clubs. Those were goal designated accounts to help you. It was a psychological tool to help you reach that particular goal. And we should still do it. You have multiple accounts in order to reach the goals. Now, thankfully, most banks will allow you to have multiple accounts without it being a cost. Um, but there's an online account. There are multiple online accounts, but there's one online account where you can now I'm drawing a blank, but you can actually separate your accounts with one account. So like it's still one account, but when you go in there, you see the money adding up into different buckets because those buckets help you know if you reach the goal. Because if you just say, I want to be debt free, what does that mean? There has to be a dollar to it. That means I have $30,000 in debt and I need to pay it down in, 5 years, 10 years. We want the goal to be quantifiable, a dollar and a date. Then we create the strategy on how we actually get to it.
Vanessa, it's really interesting, and you're educating me on the similarities here. I never looked at financial management in the same sense that I looked at how I manage my career and my business, right? And it's really about setting a goal and kind of breaking that goal down into small pieces and then strategizing to move forward to achieve it, right?
Yep.
And that's what I'm hearing a lot of from you in this process, but also kind of bringing in your network, especially from a family standpoint, just to support your aspirations.
Yes. No, absolutely. And again, having trained tons of financial coaches as well, when I train coaches, I help them understand the importance of breaking down the steps into small steps because what happens when we get overwhelmed, we stop. That's why when I say, thinking about these big, hairy audacious goals, we have to have them. And then we break them down into small steps. What is the first thing? And I challenge the people on the call, who have these goals of being debt free, buying a property or having $100,000 or whatever your goal may be, you have to break these down, make it quantifiable, again, a dollar and a date, and then how do you get to it step by step? And then today, like, what is the first step? What is the first thing you can do to get started on that goal? If it's to buy a home or to retire your mom, we have to break that down to the smallest step because it will be something that's fleeting if you don't really, you'll always be chasing it if you don't really quantify it and then be able to set those goals and steps to it. Because, I think because we've lived with under this wealth gap and this resource gap, I would say a lot of times too, access gap, that we have these aspirations. And I'm saying we as in, the Black community, because this is the National Urban League, we
Yes.
have these aspirations that I don't want to be fleeting for us. I want us to be able to achieve them. And, I've made a declaration to myself and my family that I'm going to take it as far as I can, and then my children pick up the next mantle. So I may, who knows how far I'm going to go, but I'm going to keep going as far as I can. And again, I'm tying this back to this wheel. My family stories matter because of the sacrifices that my grandparents made. I am here. And I went to I told Kenneth before I went to a gala last night that was for it's called Indigo Africa, and they're helping refugee families in Rwanda to have business acumen, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the people who were honored, she said, and this is I made my daughter write this in an essay. We are some, and I'd say me, my family, her family, maybe not everybody on this call, but I made my daughter write in her essay for high school. We are descendants of enslaved Africans in America, and we have overcome a lot to get to where we are, but we are not done yet. So I trace my roots to a plantation, and I know that my grandparents bought this property. They were sharecroppers. They came to New York. My family told me that the white families in the neighborhood would throw fire bombs in their window. And my father and his brothers, as young boys and teenagers, used to have to sit in the window with a shotgun at night so that they would catch it if the firebomb came through their window. And so I have a responsibility to that family line to pick up the mantle. I was the first person to go to college and graduate, and now I've taken what I've learned to build a real estate, again, stocks and bond portfolio, and now I'm giving my kids a great education. I'm gonna take it as far as I can go, and then it's next to them. So that's what this whole family finance is about, like how we taking where we came from, and I didn't even talk about the other side, which was in my book, you read about it, where because I had this bifurcated lifestyle where my mother's side of the family was more educated but lived in poverty. And so now that's part of why I'm so driven on the other side, not just for the inspiration, but also running away from the pain of poverty. And so now, how do I set my children up for their next generation? So all this comes back to that, like starting with the history, no matter where. Some of you may have come from, a secure family, and now you have an obligation to continue that on. Again, it may not be big aspirations. It may be just, we're going to make sure every generation is educated and well taken care of, because that's the bottom line for me. The minimum is that my children can take care of themselves. The maximum is that we're going to have create this generational wealth, and that's where I'm going. So this circle brings us all back to it: identity, the knowledge and experience, identifying what knowledge and experience is needed to create your own family's legacy and culture, because everyone's family is going to look different. Deciding who's going to run this and govern this generational wealth that we're creating, and then the wealth is a big part of it, but it's all the way getting there to it. What does wealth look like for me and my family? How much is it? Where would it be? It could be in the South, the Midwest, the North, where we're going to live, and each generation may change that. But the wealth is the culmination of all of these other things. And it's the end goal, but you can't have it unless you take care of the other parts.
All right, yeah, I love it. Man, just such a wealth of information. We're going to jump into the Q&A here and see, now they want to ask questions because I was lining up my own questions for you. But
Let me see the questions.
I'm gonna play good host and ask the questions that are in the Q&A.
Okay.
So where or what would be the best way to find a financial advisor? Is there a cost? We're not part of a high wealth family, but they're interested in having a financial advisor. Any advice that you can provide?
Well, there are many types of financial advisors, um, and some are free and some are costs. I can tell you our model here, we do work with high net worth individuals, and we don't charge an advice fee, but we manage the money. And so we charge a fee to manage the money. So all the advice and all the other stuff comes with a part of your investment fee. But there are other advisors that you can pay a fee for, and they will give you advice, based on the fee. Um, there's a National Financial Advisor Association, and I'm a mess up, but if you look up, and I know Corey's in our backup, but there is a National Association of Financial Advisors that you can go to find reputable advisors. If you don't, I know when I was a State Farm agent, we and I know they still do it. We had just began, and I'm very proud. I was in Maryland. I was actually part of the committee that went and basically, I talk about civics in I think I talk about, but anyway, civics. I went and advocated for insurance agents to be able to do financial products in Maryland, and we were one of the first states that was able to do it. But your state, like State Farm agents, are able to do some basic financial planning for you, meaning like a retirement plan, savings plan. So you might even start there if you have a good insurance agent can do it without a cost because it's just part of the services that they provide. But I would start with the National Association of Financial Advisors to find one. I would start with your firm. I would start with if you work for an employer that has benefits. I'll share my story. My mom, she worked for the city. She never made a ton of money, but I made sure she maximized every benefit that the city of New York had to offer. So she was a part of the union. She maxed out her 401k. She had the life insurance on the job. Of course, she bought life insurance for me when I was the insurance agent. So when she died, and she died young, unfortunately, we all had inheritance. So I would start with your employer and max out every benefit that they have there that you possibly can. I would go to the National Association of Financial Providers. I would go to your insurance agent to see if they offer it and your bank. So if your bank has those services, I'm not advocating for any particular bank, but sometimes your banking institution, if you have, they will offer those services for you at no cost because you're a customer. That's another opportunity for you to get some advice from them.
So we have another question in the Q&A, and I'm going to just paraphrase it. 60 years old, kid in college. Is it too early to start? Is it
Too
too
late.
late to start? Too late to start. I'm sorry.
Of course not. Too late to start what? No, to start nothing, never. You hear all the stories about people in their second phase of life. That's gonna be me. I'm not even gonna say it like, "Ooh, I can't believe it." Thank you for that, anonymous attendee. Yes, I'm gonna be 60 in my 60s with 3 kids in college. So, but it's never too late. And there's a lot of trade-offs. Life is a journey. I mean, even for the uber wealthy, obviously some families come from like mega billionaire families, multiple six-figure families. They're not worried about finances. They are worried about everything else that we're worried about, though, whether your kid's going to graduate college, mental health, physical health, all of those other things. But it is never too late. And if are on this journey with your children or child and they're still in college, no, you can start when they graduate if you need to. Absolutely not. You always have an opportunity, but it's the plan. How many more years does your son have in college, and how much financial commitment do you have to give to him to finish? And then once he's finished, how many years left do you have to continue working if you choose to, or if you have to? And that's a sacrifice again you may have to make in this moment. But I always say, if you are I don't there's no limited number of ACT that you have in your life. So your son graduated from college. You could be in your 60s or 70s and decide you're going to do something else. I don't know the rest of your financial picture, but I gave you some tips on like how to use what you have in your hand. If you own a house, even if you're renting a house, how to get extra income. You know, I hear about, through the pandemic, people created all these businesses that weren't here before that took them, to millionaire status. People have online businesses that they're making millions of dollars without leaving their home. So no, it's never too late to make money, to earn money, to start a new business, to save money. Absolutely not.
Love it. I love it. So, Vanessa, what are some common, I guess, financial challenges that you see clients or individuals face early in their careers, right? And how do you suggest they overcome said obstacles?
I need some examples. There are a lot of obstacles that happen early in the career, but I think, well, I'm going to talk about for my generation. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening now. I think most of the obstacles that happen, prior to the current situation was self-inflicted. You know what I mean? Like we were just hanging out. Like again, that know your money course really was a great entry into the psychology of money. Again, these identities that we have on ourselves, the peer pressure to go out and hang out, the peer pressure to buy the, X number of clothes, the brands. So we ended up, some of us were able to have good income, but end up spending it on these things that didn't really matter. It mattered to us on some level, but it wasn't going to help us build wealth. So that's one obstacle: yourself and your circle. How you navigate those things internally, and then your circle. The second part is, and I love the Urban League for this, and this career series is one, and it's been at the forefront, on every level through the YPs, is that we have constantly helped these young professionals in their career. So continue to take advantage of the young professionals in your city. See Kenneth Johnson and his series to help you navigate the career that you're in. The other part is that you don't have to be stuck in any career, which is, again, I think I'm bringing it up to the current date. My kids keep calling me a millennial, but I am clearly a Gen X. And so, and I told them, this generation is the FAFO, and I'm not going to use the language here, but, F around and find out. That's who we are. So we came through like hard. And so, latchkey kid, et cetera, et cetera. So, now though, the economy has changed. So people have experiencing different types of opportunities, both more opportunities and sometimes less. So, the way, and Kenneth, you're going to speak to the career part on how that's affected people like career wise. But for me, on the money and behavior wise, we have to constantly come back to ourselves. One, believing that we have the power and opportunity to create the life that we want. We do need help, and we do need resources, and we do need strategies, and we do need education, and we need information, and we need partners. But know that it is out there, and start with what's in your hand and what's in your circle. And if it's not in your circle, you have to find it. And I see Antoine Walker in the chat. Yes, I did go to Binghamton, Binghamton alumni. Yes, class of '94. So you know my age now. So yes, so yeah, so those challenges, I would say now, I think what's happening in the economy for the younger people on the call is the again, the changing in the economy and the jobs that are no longer there, that were there before, in our generation and before, you could start with one company, retire there and be fine. Now there's a lot of turnover. Technology is replacing jobs. So we have to be more strategic on the career choices that we make. I made a career change at 50. And it's still on my journey because I've always had this passion around money and finance. But I joined Bernstein at 50 years old, and I know myself more. I've always had a knowing of myself, but I know that for me to be successful at this age, it has to be the things that fit me. I'm a people person. I like analysis. I like solving problems. I like helping communities. I like making money. So I had to find those things, and it's never too late. So that's my answer. And Kenneth, you may want to add to the career part if you want to.
No, we're talking about finances today.
Okay. All right.
But listen, I was sitting here thinking, and I know the next slide is closing remarks. And what you just said was so pertinent. But is there anything else, just a little tidbit that you want to leave the audience with that you think is vital to their success in building wealth?
Whew. So I do want to say that I want to acknowledge the systemic barriers that are in place for Black people, people of color, women. I always want to acknowledge that. And I say that we have to continue to be resilient. we have to continue to be tenacious in our quest for our financial freedom, because that's what people really want. That's what wealth does for most of us. Now, how we live that out is going to vary. So I want you, again, to continue to believe in yourself, um, be resourceful, connect with networks that are going to take you where you want to go. I'll share a story in closing that I said I was the first generation college student because Antoine Walker is here from Binghamton. I was a first generation college student, and I was an honor roll student in high school, so I was able to get into a lot of colleges. No one guided me. Someone dropped me off. A friend of mine in my neighborhood actually dropped me to Binghamton. And the first day I came was the week before school started for orientation. I wasn't in the BEP program. I went through regular admittance, and it was do or die for me. And so, but I made a choice that the community I was living in at the moment, there weren't a lot of people going to college. So I had to be around the people who were going to college. So because I was in those classes, that was kind of my class community, but I still went to the neighborhood, to the hood, to the people who were not. But I had to stand firm, even as a young woman, a young child, really, to say that this is where I want to go. And I continue to do that throughout my life. So for you, whatever your goal is, you have to connect with people who are going where you want to go, who has already been there, who are on the journey, and then always bring someone with you and know that it is possible. So one is digging into yourself, and your network is going to matter. That's why I joined the young professionals. When I graduated college, I figure out, oh, I don't know any young professionals in my family. Now I got to work with a community that's work with young professionals. And we learned and we shared, in the young professionals community. And at 50 years old, 50, 50 something, 52, I am still in that way. My network, they don't all look like me. They're not the same race, color, gender as me, but they are going to where I want to go. I came into this firm and I have intentionally sought out mentors who I knew are successful. And I'm convincing them that they have to work with me, and they are. And so I want you to be as tenacious with that about your career, about your money and your finances. And please feel free to reach out to me, and I can connect you to resources beyond myself, to help you on your journey.
Well, we appreciate you helping us on this journey today. If you're looking to stay connected to Vanessa and the work that she's doing, please do not hesitate to reach out to her. There's the website for Bernstein. She's active on LinkedIn. You can follow her on IG as well. Also, the same for me. We do this every other week. Please lock in at East Coast Executives to find out about the things that we're doing. But Instagram and LinkedIn is where I live, so do not hesitate to reach out to me and connect there. We will do this again, of course, on October, I guess that's going to be October 16th, where we're next level LinkedIn, leveling up. A lot of you guys attended the national conference, and now you have the LinkedIn premium accounts. You got to show up next week so we can talk about it with a member of the LinkedIn team on how you can best leverage LinkedIn premium and LinkedIn in general. So look forward to seeing you next week. Again, my name is Kenneth L. Johnson. I'd like to thank Vanessa Lindley for joining us today. Great presentation, sis. I appreciate you so much. Also like to thank Wanda Jackson, Corey O'Donnell, and the team at the National Urban League for making this such an enjoyable and informative process and platform for you, the audience, who I'd like to thank last but not least. Thank you for joining us every week and supporting the Digital Career Success Series. We'll see you October 23rd. Next Level LinkedIn. All right, Kenneth Johnson. I'll see you. Take care.